There and welcome back to Casual Fridays. My name is Art Burns and I'm here to teach you about mindfulness practices in the workplace. When we bring mindfulness practices into our workplace, a lot of really wonderful things tend to happen. Number one, on an intrapersonal level, right, an internal sort of self level, we develop the skills of emotional intelligence, right, the soft skills of self-regulation, self-awareness, empathy, motivation, and social skills. Right. And as we cultivate these inner skills, these intrapersonal skills, it then allows us to change the way we interpersonally, meet and manage and interact with those with whom we work. The end result of all this is certainly higher levels of productivity, higher levels of profit, higher levels of meaning, higher levels of meaning, finding meaning within your work and finding something that is bigger than yourself as it associates with your work. No matter what it is that you do, right? There's always something bigger than you that you're contributing to. So you can connect with that. And ultimately, we're talking about happiness, right? We're talking about being able to be happy within our workplace, which of course then opens us up to the thing that they call work-life balance, which I still don't really understand what that actually means because of course we need work-life balance, but the idea though is that, work and life are not two separate things, right? It's life, work, work, life, it's all the same. And so part of this, the awareness that we develop through mindfulness practices allows us to see this, allows us to break down this sort of binary view of things that we sometimes have. And the reason why that's important is because that binary view, that digital view of the world, that it's either one thing or the other, is the thing that lends itself or creates the habit of judgment. Right? As we walk through our lives, we tend to judge things. We put things into little boxes. These are the good boxes. These are the bad boxes. And when we experience things in such a such a digital way, as opposed to analogic, where we can see that there's good and bad in everything and that nothing is truly good or bad. And so, or everything is good and bad, that we can then, shift the way that we manage ourselves. Because once we put things into those boxes, we then react to those judgments, right? So the things that we judge as bad, we feel resistant to. The things that we judge as good, we want to cling to. We want to attach to those. We want to hold on for dear life, like Charlton Heston's gun or something, right? And so when we do these things, whether we're resisting or we're clinging, well, what we're going to experience is stress. And we're going to experience negative emotions that are going to cause that stress. And those negative emotions are going to close down our thinking. It's going to, sort of narrow down the potentials that we see. It's going to, shift the story to one of pessimism and self-criticism or criticism of others. And it's going to, result in less productivity, less work-life balance, again, whatever that means, less happiness. And ultimately, that means less productivity, less profit, less all the stuff that we're working for, we're going to reduce because of the judgment that we pass on things. Now, here's the thing. Most of us are not walking around saying, how should I judge this thing? No, it's a habit. It's a habit that's formed over your entire life. Right, from when you were a little kid, and you watched whatever the way that your parents might have judged things, or your grandparents might have judged things, or you were certainly subject to judgment in school, right? I mean, it's just something that's been cultivated over the decades of your life. No matter how old you are, no matter where you were born, what year you were born, any of that, it's irrelevant because we are all subject to this. Now, that doesn't mean that all of us have the same habits of judgment. Some people, again, it's an analogic process. Your parents might have been less judging than my parents, and so therefore you have less of that sort of tendency. Maybe you have more of a sort of objective view of things than say I naturally do. But the point is, the only thing that's important here is that whatever that level of judgment is, it is a habit. It is unconscious. It is unintentional. It just happens. Without our awareness, without our knowledge, without our intention. Okay? Now, the reason I bring all that up is because that's the sort of, internal judgment that we do. And we do. Everybody does it on some level until we build the skills to not do it. All right? Now, that's the key that we talk about when we talk about mindfulness practices, right? They are practices or we call them practices for a reason, because we must practice them. It's not good enough just to, I hope that you're enjoying the podcast. And yeah, there's hundreds of books that I could recommend to you to read about mindfulness and about what it does, whether you're into the science end of it or the spiritual end of it or whatever in between, okay? But the point is that just reading and just listening to people like me and just, sort of thinking about mindfulness is not the same as practicing it, or it doesn't do what we need that we get from practice. Because remember, I said that this is habitual. And the only way to cultivate a new habit is to actually do something regularly that is different from the thing that you're trying to work out of, right? So for instance, if we have this habit of judging things, then we must practice not judging things in order to develop the habit of not judging things, okay? Now again, as I say, we're talking mostly on an internal level here, but right now in this moment, I want to make the switch. I want to talk about how this sort of judging applies to our interpersonal experiences, because I don't know you. I don't know exactly what you do for a living, but I can make a very, very high probability educated guess that almost every single one of you who is listening to my voice right now or watching me on video right now works with other people. That somehow, somewhere in your work, you must communicate, you must interact with other people. Am I right? Most of you said, yes, you're right. So now again, this is also on a spectrum, right? Like, for instance, somebody who is a copywriter, right? A freelance copywriter working from home has very little interpersonal interactions. Whereas somebody who works, say, in customer service has their whole job is interpersonal communications. Yeah? You get what I'm saying here? But in any case, there is some level of interpersonal communication, interpersonal, interactions. Now, those interactions don't even need to be physical interactions, right? Because when you just think of someone with whom you're working, there's a process that happens. Whether you're thinking of that person or you're sitting face to face speaking to them or you're emailing them or you're on a Zoom call with them or you're in a meeting with a lot of other people with them, whatever the case, okay, as you experience other people, we all have the similar habit that we did with the intrapersonal judgment, right? The inner judging, right? We have the same thing where we put people into little boxes. Now, of course, no, we're not taking their bodies and stuffing them into a little box. I hope we're not doing that. Please don't do that. But what we're doing is we're mentally and emotionally putting them into boxes. Now, ultimately, these boxes mean, is this person safe or are they a threat? Ultimately. But again, that's not conscious. We're not sitting there saying, should I be afraid of this person? No, what we're saying is, I don't like this person. This person is blank. I won't go any further with what fills in the blank. I'll allow you to do that work, okay? Because depending on where we're at, that could be pretty severe, right? So the point is, though, that as we encounter other people, we have a same sort of innate, automatic process that looks just like the judgment that I described, in a couple of these episodes, but certainly a few minutes ago. Now, Why is this important? Again, just like the judgment, if I see someone and I put them into one of those boxes that says this is a bad person. Now, again, a bad person could just be, Judy over there in accounting, right? Because she cooks fish in the microwave every Friday, and so Judy is bad in my mind. I don't know that Judy's bad, right? Like, that's not an actual thing, right? I am judging Judy as being bad because of some behavior that Judy, performs, which in this case, we're talking about cooking fish in the microwave, right? Which would really upset me. I think I would have a real big problem with that. But I would try to work it out with Judy, right? But the problem is that most of us, again, as an automatic habitual thing, we say Judy's bad. Whereas Mike, who, buys donuts for the office, Mike is good, right? And so when Judy, when I see Judy's phone number pop up on my desk phone or her email address pop up in my inbox, I am going to have the same kind of reaction that I had when I judged something as good or bad. Like, let's say getting stuck in traffic, right? I'm going to always say, this is bad. I'm stuck in traffic. This is bad, right? I see Judy's name. Judy's bad. I have to deal with Judy now, and Judy's bad because she's the one that cooks the fish in the microwave and smells up the whole office, and nobody likes Judy. Poor Judy. I feel so bad for her. But anyway, the point is that however I feel about Judy has nothing to do with whether she's going to cook the fish in the microwave or not, right? But when I see Judy's name and I say Judy bad, I'm resisting Judy. I'm saying I don't want Judy in my life right now. And what happens then is that I experience the negative emotions, which cause the stress, which then cause the thoughts in my mind that I associate Judy with all kinds of horrible things, right? Not only does she cook, the fish in the microwave every Friday afternoon, but she's probably spending her weekends like torturing cats or something. This person is sheer evil. Now, of course, I'm being silly, right? But that's the way the process of the storytelling mind works. And it works on very unconscious levels. Again, it's not like I'm having this conscious thought of Judy doing horrible things to animals, but it's just I associate her. I have this sort of, what they call in psychology a schema. She fits into the bad category of people. And as I interact with her, I'm going to react to my perceived badness that she is. Now, again, I might be right about Judy, right? She might be doing really horrible things, right? That nobody knows about. And someday she's gonna see like a Netflix movie about her, like this woman who hid this, evil, tendencies for so long. I mean, I'm being silly again, right? But the point is that I don't know one way or the other, right? Judy could just as well as I'm saying, because she, making this silly connection that because she, does this horrible thing with the fish, she does this other horrible thing on the weekends. I could be completely wrong. She might volunteer for an animal shelter and care more for animals than I ever have in my whole life. I doubt it, but because I care a lot. But the point is that I don't know, right? And so there's no point in me judging something that I don't know for sure, right? But that's not the point anyway, right? The point is not, about not judging her because of any external reason. The point is not judging her because of what it does to me, right? Because it puts me in a place of dysregulation. It takes me away from my happiness. It takes me away from my productivity. It takes me away from my, seeing the positive potential in my life. And of course, yes, there's not just one person in the office, right? There's lots of people for most of us that we have to work with. And it's like a minefield. It's like, oh man, there's these bad people and then there's these good people. Well, at the end of the day, guess what? You're bringing home this tension that you're feeling. You're bringing home these negative emotions. And then, because you're in this negative emotional state because of, Judy and her friends with the microwave and the fish and stuff, you're now going to be, again, it's a habit. It's not just the people at work. It's, when you go to the grocery store, oh man, that person looks like they're mean, or that person looks like they're nice. You could be completely wrong. But this is the way your mind is processing things. Again, not on a conscious level, but on a very unconscious level. So what we can do is we can practice ways to meet each person with an openness, with just a general, as we call it, a universal positive regard. That, even if you are the person who microwaves fish in the microwave, on Friday afternoons, even if you are that person, I can still see you with the equanimity of kindness, right? And if I do see you with kindness, and I do practice kindness for you and around you, and as I interpret you, well, then maybe I'm able to talk to you about the fish in the microwave. Maybe we could come up with some kind of, reasonable, compromise and accommodation, right? Like, that's the thing. If I'm judging, I'm shutting things down. If I'm not judging, I'm allowing things to open up. I'm allowing things to be, to be more, filled with a potential of everything working out and everybody being happy. And as we do this, as we cultivate this skill through very simple practices, there's a shift that happens inside of us. A really, really beautiful shift that happens inside of us. It doesn't mean that you're going to have to, put up with people cooking fish in microwaves for your whole life. But what it means is that you have a skillfulness of how you interact, even with the people who do things that hurt you. And that's the magic, right? Because just because somebody's doing something that is, like something I don't enjoy, doesn't mean that I have to let that hijack my day. I don't have to give Judy that power. And neither do you. So here's just a couple of very, very simple practices. I know I think I'm going to make these 20-minute episodes instead of 15, because 15 just doesn't seem to be my thing. But in the last 3 minutes, let me give you a couple of really, really quick exercises. Every time you go into a meeting, whether it's a Zoom meeting or a conference room meeting or a lunch meeting or a one-on-one thing with whomever you're there with, okay? As you're sitting down, just before the meeting starts, look around you. And again, even if you're just seeing people's names on the Zoom thing, and if you're waiting for somebody to show up for a lunch meeting, just look around the restaurant, right? And all the people that you can see, just one by one. And you don't have to do if you're in a restaurant with like 200 people, you do not have to go to each single person to do this. But take like 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, and just person by person, just say, I wish you well. That's it. Just very simple. I wish you well. All right? Now, another thing that we can do is, and there are more practices in this, and I'm going to, I'm more than happy to share more. If any of this is resonating with you, please get in touch with me, because it's really important stuff, and I can certainly give you, more practices that are going to more deeply impact what we're talking about here, okay? But these are two really, really simple ones. Next, every morning, set the intention to do 3 acts of kindness at work today. Now, the thing is, the acts of kindness, the most optimal and beneficial way to approach this is to try to find the smallest, not the biggest, but the smallest acts of kindness that you can do. You know that moment where it's like, oh man, I'm walking through that door and the person behind me is like, 15 feet behind me, so I really shouldn't hold the door for them? Hold the door for them. Just stand there and smile and hold the door. And say, you don't have to rush. I'm cool. Even if you're late. Another 30 seconds is not going to hurt anybody. I promise you. unless you're a doctor, okay, or you're working as a first responder or something like that, right? Another kind thing could be, just saying to someone like, hey, it really looks like you got a lot going on. There's nothing I can do to help you. I wish I could, but I just want you to know that I see how hard things are for you right now. That project you're working on, or the end of the year, accounting thing, or the audit that's coming up, or whatever it is, I know the pressure that you're under, right? Having somebody recognize that in us is just, oh my gosh, it feels so good. It feels so sweet, right? Also, just a heartfelt, thank you, right? Like if someone holds the door for you, making eye contact and saying, wow, I really appreciate you did that. Thank you, right? These are all acts of kindness. And these are the kinds of things that I'm going to suggest and recommend that you do every single day, because before long, and again, it's not about making people happy, and it's not about doing these things just for any ulterior motive or anything like that, right? I mean, it's beautiful to do kind things just in and of themselves, right? But what happens is we do this as we wish people well, and as we cultivate this sort of willingness to be intentionally kind, right? What we're doing is we're changing that judging habit of our mind with other people, right? We're slowly shifting and reshaping the way that we process our fellow human beings. And it starts to get way beyond work at that point too, right? It's not just at work. It's also at the grocery store. It's at the movie theater. It's at the restaurant. It's at the sporting events. It's, with our kids or professional sporting events, wherever it is. Every time we meet people, we now do not have this, put them in one of these boxes. Are they in the good box or the bad box? Right? Instead, they're in the human box. They're in the sentient being box. Because then, again, as we cultivate these skills, we start to recognize and we start to feel the empathy. That, what? Judy, who cooks the fish in the microwave every week, maybe there's something going on with Judy. Maybe she's suffering on some level. And maybe her suffering, blinds her to the suffering of us with the smell of the fish. And maybe if we are kind to Judy, maybe then something shifts and maybe she's able to, make a different lunch and make her fish at dinner at home. Anyway, I hope this all makes sense to you. I hope you enjoyed this. And again, I'm way over my time. I appreciate you listening to me. I appreciate you watching. If you're watching on YouTube, and if you are watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, share, do all those things. Comment if you can. Not only do I love to hear from you, but it also boosts the algorithm, right? And so if we can get a few more people on here, we're just going to help more people. It's not that I'm making anything on it or anything, but just, having more help out there, more beautiful mindfulness and kindness out there. Okay. And on the podcast, thank you for listening to me. Okay. If there's any way, I think on Apple, you can rate the podcast. So if you're on Apple, if you could give me however many stars you think I deserve. I'm not looking for favors. I'm not looking for anything unfair, but I'm looking for any, anything that will help boost this, and again, not for my own personal, egoic drive, but for the result that I could get more and more people to, because maybe somebody hears this and it changes something, because it changed something for me a long time ago, and I cannot even tell you. I'll tell you a couple of stories coming up here in the next couple of weeks about who I used to be and how, I was like a rattlesnake. I was so mean and like dehumanizing with people. You can go back in some of my Showing Up to Life podcast episodes and you'll find some of this stuff there, but I'll share some of the stories soon. But that doesn't happen anymore. And I am living more happily and free from stress and more healthy and more, I have so much more wherewithal now than I ever had. And a lot of it, most of it is because of the way I see people now as opposed to the way I used to see them. All right. So start out with those couple of practices. We'll be back next week and we'll talk about some more. Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. Wishing you well.